Hello everyone, this is Shiny Noctowls, and today I figured I'd do a ancestry video regarding the latest quantum deep dive update for my true ancestry. I waited a while until I could get a decent discount on it. I try to look for good deals at times, and I was finally able. I think it released a few weeks ago, or almost around a month ago. But I finally got a good deal on it. Finally got it for, I think they finally put it down by 77%. Nice. But yeah, just this update, I got uh, l- new matches, but a lot of them were relatively small, but they were something. I had gotten some other matches before that, and it's interesting how my ancestry really like this is one cool thing about the quantum deep dive is that the kind of like the deeper they go into ancestry and like more updates they do, like you really get to see a better picture of like where all your ancestries came from. You can still see like my Gallo-Celtic sequiny still pretty high, Brazilian still there, Mycenaean Greek Trojan ancestry. Then the Ruran connected to the Yayoi, it's still there. Um, I actually shared some of that ancestry of the Joron. In Japanese, the Ruran are called the Joron. Sometimes they're called the Senpi as well, which can also mean senpai. He read about the story of the Ruran and kind of like the similarities of them facing the Gokturks, how the samurai faced the Kublais, uh, Mongols, and yeah, it was like he really connected with it. And what it seems like, because I know you guys might be asking, like, why does it say Golden Horde versus Iran? I think at one point, because since like I think like the Yayoi ancestry of the Japanese eventually became the Mongols. I think before they went different ways, or before the Iran went different ways, all that there was like a shared Northeast Asian ancestry. So I think that's why like sometimes it looks so close, but really, from what I can gather, it's kind of like the Gokturks probably were more connected eventually to what Mongols flying Genghis, and then the Ron, Jurong, Avar, Senpi Senpai were like uh, the ones who eventually become the samurai, and so yeah, and so I had like a lot of like Ron, Avar, Senpi Senpai samples. Japanese person that I sometimes speak to on Discord did that. Um, heard you could really connect with that. And so yeah, like that part of my ancestry was really interesting to learn about because I think that's why like I tell my Uncle Herman I feel more Japanese than uh I call him Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman because like I feel like he's a mix of German, Japanese, and Cherokee for over 40 years now. I always tell him I feel more Japanese native, or I know he connects. He says he can see the connection with the Jomon and Yayoi, and I mean Jomon and Ainu. But now he understands like why some of the Eskimos look modern Japanese Yayoi. Understands like why I have that connection. But yeah, that's been really interesting to learn about. Like that part of my ancestry for sure. I would have had no clue about had I not done this. And also the Gallo-Celtic sequiny. Really, I might have or may have not have known, but Frisian was another one that's learned about. I think that comes from my great grandfather, my dad's. It could be from a bit of it from both father sides. But yeah, that's been interesting about the Frisians. The Etruscans, or not only Etruscan, but also has like Celtic and Akkadian. I think maybe some of it came from that. But yeah, let's keep going through these. Heck, I got a lot of these samples recently. Proto-Belgic Sociones, Burgundy. be connected to my from mom's because she has last name. I've been speaking to a French Irish Canadian, and I've been learning quite a bit from spells. This also could also be, yeah, and then Saxon, Latin, Gales. I got a lot of my Gale ancestry. A lot of the Donny, Celtic, Lungobard, Celts, Danish Viking, Celtic Briganti, Celtic Bretons, Celtic Heresy, Atrobats, Belgic, Benomani, Franks, Italian Celtic, Celtic Vandal. Yeah, I got a lot of like, like all these deep dives really worth it. Like I'd really have a lot from. Okay, I think. Okay, I feel like with the amount of money I've spent on this in the last over 2 years now, it's almost been around 2,500. Not quite that much yet, but almost around there. I know some people would say like it's not a lot of money to spend, and I tell myself, well, I kind of see it as if I had taken a trip to like Japan, Ireland, or Scotland before I knew more about my ancestry. Because see, like I could have gone before without doing any of this, but I feel like, and also I feel like a lot of people found like the ancestral work I've done really interesting. Just kind of like whether it's whatnot. But yeah, like I feel like just learning about all the ancestors that make up who I am is just now it's easier to tell people who I who I am. Like when people say, what's your ancestor, and then I can tell them. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, yeah, I got. Yeah, this one was interesting. Well, really seeing the medieval ages even on have our some people by already. Well, I guess some were like I guess undercover, but yeah, there's some of this stuff is really, especially in the medieval period. A lot of people. Of course, there was that. Well, and these are just the I think most of these populations mainly have Anatolian Neolithic farmer ancestry. So basically, um, for the Yamnaya or ancient North Eurasian or steppe people came from Siberia, they weren't necessarily Asians. They were really the best way I can describe that ancestry. Best way I can describe that ancestry, like I tell my dad, is that it's it's the it's the Native Americans if they didn't mix with like the ancient Northeast Asian connected to Japanese, also Polynesian Asians, like I guess maybe even some Southeast. Yeah, but you can see here, I guess what eventually became ancient North Asian that made up the ancestry of natives, also a lot of Northern Europeans, ancient North Greeks and uh, Northern Europeans, Scandinavia. You can see these two populations mixed, basal East Asian, Travantine, yeah, there I guess they mixed. And how he ancient North region came to be. Yeah. So, and then if you want to know about like Caucasus, well, actually, no, let me do like ancient North regions. Yeah, ancient. Um, yeah, and I think I've done a lot of the other stuff too, just to show you guys real quick. Caucasian hunter. You know, sometimes when I look at some of the Caucasian hunter gatherers, not all of them, but some of them, they do remind me of guy from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Gimli. Sometimes I can see that a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. For maybe not all Caucasian hunter gatherers look like that. I think some look a little bit different. Um, this is what people think when they think of Yamnaya, like, which is basically like ancient North Eurasian, East hunter gathered and West hunter gathered. Either crazy, but yeah. So yeah, because some people, I don't know why they get so crazy about it, but yeah, West hunter gathered. I guess this is one. I don't know how accurate this is personally. And it's yeah. See, an early European. Yep. Okay. Yeah, and yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, it's really interesting how many like groups mixed and like did all these things. Yeah, looks interesting. Especially Hungary. There were so many people that were going through there. I didn't realize Hungary was such like a focal point. Yeah, I feel like the next expansion, Evercold, is gonna be really interesting. When I look at the embroidery of the shield for, which I think they were said to have come from Norway. Uh, stuff. And then this guy, the Alamani, makes me. There's this YouTuber. Yeah, some interesting content. Some of it interesting, but it's a little bit. It tends to be pretty political. But anyways, yeah, he reminds me a little bit like when I see the Alamani. Uh, but of course, I've seen other people also look like this as well. Um, yeah, let's see. So yeah, it's just so interesting. They came all the way from Asia or Northeast Asia to Hungary. Like that's thousands of miles traveled. Like I still that's still like such an interesting story how they got. Yeah, and this one was interesting. At first, I wasn't sure if this was like a Native American sample. It might just be. Uh, she also is wearing like a really. Yeah, I feel like I've seen someone who looks like this. This ancestry is apparently from this ancestry come from? I have Central. Yeah, I think it's also in Japan because I feel like I've seen a few Japanese out as well. I mean, I don't think it's common, but I do think there are some Japanese. I've also seen some people, like other people, I feel that have European, other people who, and probably also they, yeah, it's just like some stuff here. Yeah, this is really cool. You had maternal haplogroup A, which I think also like a haplogroup aside from haplogroup D, which I speak about a lot. I think she's literally Hungarian. I didn't know that part. Literally Proto-Hungarians. I wonder if that's why some Hungarians, aside from Germans, feel a connection to like some Native Americans because like they stem from like maternal haplogroup A, which yeah, you can see it a lot of Pacific Northwest, Eskimo. Aside from haplogroup D, which I speak about a lot because I do feel connection to haplogroup, maternal haplogroup also speaks like in Japanese, but A is also there a lot. Tribes in Mexico, Apache. That's parts of China. Yeah, Japan. Yeah, it's a lot of places. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that part. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a lot of bits and pieces. Celtic. And then quickly too, like after I show you just some of the new samples I got, I'll show you what are the main ones I'm connected to still. Because of course, like I have a lot of different ancestries, then kind of sort like the biggest like shared ancestry. This one was interesting, and I only say that because I know I asked my mom one time what was one of her favorite countries in Europe. I think Italy and France were one of them, but interestingly enough, she also enjoyed Poland as well. I know Poland's kind of a bit of a politically contested place, but I don't know, it's interesting. I know Ken he did some content with I think like a sister and a brother. I think both from Poland. That was interesting. But you can also kind of like see just like the people, Slovenia or Slovenia, Scythian, Baltic tribes. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Speaking of Baltic, yeah, it's like a lot of like small samples, but this one's Lithuanian, Latvian, Slovenia, Viking, Baltic, um, Proto-Celtic. I guess even before they had quote unquote Celtic ancestry, they're still close related. Because this is what I try to tell people is that people don't realize that before the Celts arrived to Britain and Ireland, there were already people already there, and those people, Welbeat were people. Maybe some of them were close to what is now known as Celts, Gael, Breton, Mercia, Briganti, because it might have been even before they had mixed with not only Holstein but also La Ten Celts. Yeah, yeah. And this was like some interesting stuff. Germany, 4,000 years. Yeah, like this stuff has been interesting just to kind of like learn about like all these different groups. This woman here, she reminds me a bit of like an elf, for whatever reason. Because some of the Anatolian Neolithic farmers to me look like they could be elven. I don't know how to say. It's related to French past, Southwest French. I always felt like if elves would have a place, because I know a lot of people speak about the Netherlands, but I think they might have had like a place aside from there. I would think maybe like France or parts of Spain, southern other places, parts of Switzerland. It'd be like Scandinavia, but in Ireland too. Yeah, also like interesting. Yeah, this one was. I feel like I know someone who looks like this. I don't know why. I just feel like I've seen someone, person who looks like like a lot of like small samples here, but still interesting. S- Yeah, and now I can see why sometimes I grow deep red hairs from my dark beard because I do have a bit of a dark beard, but sometimes I get like these deep red hairs that come out of it. I know. One interesting thing about the Romans invaded Britain is it seems like a lot of people who came there, they weren't even necessarily genetically Roman. They were, I think, people specifically the Caucasus, like Georgian, Balkan. Yeah, Carvadine. Yeah, I don't. I feel like I know someone. Yeah, I did get a little bit more Celtic matches. I know. Yeah, I'll see if I can. Uh, did I get any new? By the way, I'm gonna check this real quick. I want to get a bit of rest before I do exercise. also interesting. Yeah, I'll show you guys ones that are like, because I have like a ton. Like I like really I got like I think it was worth it though. I think it was a good deal just for. Okay, I'll just go here. These are not necessarily like the ancestries I have the highest shared DNA with. It's just with all the users I have, like some of them, I guess like I had matched the closest. Like, yeah, this stuff was pretty interesting. I had like some Villanovan Proto-Etruscan ancestry, which is like I guess like in northern Italy. I guess I guess it matches. Yeah, you can see there was like a mixture of Etruscan, Akkadian, Greek, Roman. So I know I know I like to say that we shouldn't give credit all the credit to the Etruscans for the aqueducts because I feel like the Latins or kind of aside from the Etruscans, the Latins or other people that inhabited Italy, I think also played a large role, also constructing aqueducts too, and not only them, but I think also like for like the Akkadian Greeks and Celts and maybe nations are also contributing well. But yeah, it's interesting to see like the mixture and how they mixed with different people. It kind of makes me think of like Dragon Quest a little. Yeah, yeah, this one was cool. To me, she literally looks like in like what I think as well. Yeah, friend. Yeah, see what I mean. Tavi. Yeah, there were some like interesting matches stuff. You can see like Celtic. What's this Celtic Iberian got in Celtic? Seems like a lot of these populations really, aside from North Italian, they really tend like Spanish. Maybe this is why like, I also have that particularly. Yeah, so you do see Gallo-Celtic Sequini. Yeah, so there were some groups that didn't. Yeah, I don't, and sometimes like with the, I think a lot of these images made with AI, like I'm not sure like why something not the way there is. Okay, so that does make sense because I think when they say about the Etruscan, that's how Tuscany got its name. So I don't know, maybe there's, yeah, he also looks. I don't know why I keep saying that, but yeah, I only say that because like I had a friend one time, or my friend Joe had a female friend that one time. So for whatever reason, yeah. Which one there was one that reminded me of like my friend Nina, that she part Irish, but I think she did say one time she felt like she had a bit of Italian in her. Image reminds me so. Yeah, but here you can still see like Spanish, Portuguese, so those are just Etruscan. Interesting stuff. Um, yeah, I'll be back, guys. I'm just gonna change where I'm wearing. I'm back, guys. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but this one was really cool because I think like in some images they had like Etruscans with kind of like reddish or auburn hair, and I can kind of see it now here. Yeah, but this was pretty interesting to learn about, like just all these different matches I had. Oh yeah, and I spoke about the Ruron Avarn, and I think I've shown this before, but yeah, like I got a match here, a big match. Yeah, I know it says here Monk Horde, but really these were, I think, because I think it's because of all like the shared Northeast Asian ancestry. I think that's why sometimes it clusters it like that. But I think they were really closer to like the Yayoi or the Northeast Asian ancestry, the Japanese, that would eventually lead to the Samurai. I think this was just like kind of like the original ancestry, or they had separated. Um, yes. So this one, this was a neat one too. Yeah, this, she's really related to Southwest French, Spanish again. And I think the reason Chelsea, the reason why I think it's kind of like that because I think originally like Italy, like in antiquity, I think like the original like Romans and Etruscans and Latins and all those groups of people, I think they tended to be closer to like Spanish, Portuguese, North Italian, Tuscan, and I think during the imperial period, when other groups came specifically from I think some say the Near East, some say North Africa, some other places. I think that's why the ancestry started changing. Which makes sense, you know, things do change over time. Yeah, so but yeah, so you look at the top matches I have, so this is just like basically like what are the groups that I have the most shared ancestry with, regardless of like how you know, even if some users may have more of that specific or match, well, um, it's kind of like one of those things where you can have a small DNA samples, you can have a small DNA match, and you may be one of the closest people that match with that person because maybe you were the only one who matched with that person, or very few did. And then you can have a sample where you have a lot of ancestry with one ancestral group, but a lot of people who've also taken the test also might have a fair bit of that as well. Yeah, so with that being said, yeah, like these were like the Latin Celts from, I guess before France was Gaul, but yeah, you can see and I say this because I know my French Irish Canadian friend, he'll sometimes ask about what are the Germanic groups or Iron Age Germanic ancestry, and I try to tell him it's not just Germanic, it's also Celtic. Because I know some people try to say, the both groups are the same, but I mean, while they both intermixed, they also have distinctions too, in a way, in in a sense too. But yeah, anyways, you can see here Sequoia, Dewey, Batavi, this was known as skulls, like a lot of Celtic. Belgic was like a Celtic Germanic and then Germanic, and I think some also relate to like Etruscan as well, because I think some of them were maybe even some Latins as well, but I think it's because they intermarried with some people in northern Italy, and I think that maybe that's why some people say like uh, northern Italy, like some say like there is Celtic ancestry there, because I guess they also intermarried. Yeah, you can see a mix of Galicia, Portuguese, Italian. Um, yeah, and I have some Norse ancestry. But interestingly enough, with some of these groups, they were also, I'll show you with the Celts too. And some of them were related to like the Celtic Parisy. I think that's how like Paris got its name, and I think it really like that word really comes from kettle or cauldron or Paranos or something similar to that. Yeah, but you can see like other people. Yeah, so you can see here this match specifically. See how some of the Celts were mixing with groups from. Maybe eventually they'll include other groups other than Etruscans, but at least these were one of the groups. And also Celts, Iberians, Sequani. Yeah, Iberian, you get this. Yeah, you can really see how like the populations were blending, like Celtic and Italic time. Really interesting stuff, actually. I think that's why they also have like Italo-Celtic, because like they say that Celtic and Italic used to be like one branch and then split off. But they're reuniting again, and yeah, you can see here Sequani, Etruscan. I wonder if that's why, like, because when I was playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, like I saw like a lot of Aqueduct references in the game, and I don't want to give the Etruscans all the credit because, of course, like they, I feel like some of them, would want to take all the credit, but I don't want to give it to all of them. But some of them did play a role in, the development of aqueducts in Europe, so it is part of it. So. Yeah, no, I was thinking about that because Legends Arceus is based in France, so Celtic Parisy. Odyssey. Yeah, I'm just gonna go through these quick. Italo-Celtic and even Germanic blend. It's like a blend of like Germanic, Italic, Celtic, even sometimes Greek, like all in one. Like it's really interesting. Yeah, reminds me of Legend of Zelda. And Legend of Zelda sometimes also has like, and maybe that's why like there's a bit of like that Greek influence. Uh, I mean, you could say Italic too, but I guess it's like like a blend of Greek, um, and I guess Italic as well, because you'll see it sometimes like the fairy fountain in Legend of Zelda. Like now it kind of makes sense. Like if the groups all kind of intermixed, like it makes sense like how cultures also kind of intertwine over time as well. Yeah. Yeah, and you can see like some of the earliest European farmers that lived in Europe. This is what the Romans would have called like Aboriginals, or like the original like people of Italy before because I think they say the Romans were really some say Trojan refugees, but they could have been like a blend of like people from Troy and Mycenae, so like more so mainland Greece. Like maybe they came together and they went to Italy. They found the Latins and the Etruscans there, and then eventually they mixed, and some of them mixed, and eventually they became the Romans. And I think that's maybe it has to do with like what you see partly in the proto culture and all that. Um, yeah, and it's just like really interesting. And some of these people also were like, I think, connected to Stonehenge as well, because I was looking at Ancestry match from Britain almost 5,000 years ago, and she was very genetically similar, with the addition of, I think, some Neolithic farmers also from Sardinia and Sicily as well, but still really close to like Latins, and I think even Koreans at this. Not sure about Hanneti, but yeah. Yeah, just some really interesting stuff. Um, yeah, I have like this has really been interesting because if I had never like done this like ancestral test, I would have not have known I was related to this many people. Like I don't know how else to say it. It's been really interesting to like kind of like learn how all my ancestry, like how it all came together, and like how there's just so many different groups of people eventually blended together, and yeah. Yeah, and there were some other matches too from like I guess when there was a Greek colony in Spain, they called it Emporias or I think Emporium. That's where the word came from. I think they founded in Catalonia, and it seemed like it was not only like Greeks that eventually inhabited that area, but also like Celtic tribes as well. The Sosstones, Celtic, Pharisee, Batavi, Sequani, Thrungi, see that the groups were kind of, or at least some of them were blending. Uh, yeah, but yeah, and then this is just like one sample. Um, what some of the original Roman ancestry was before they mixed with the Etruscans and Latins, Gallo-Roman, Roman. Gallo-Roman is just really a connection of Celtic, Italo-Celtics. It goes back to that connection. When the Romans and Celts were once really had a shared ancestry of each other. Some nights, Rhodesia. You can really see North Italian, Tuscan, Spanish, and Lucy, Garcia, Kosovar. I think it's like next to Billion. Yeah, it's like just some really interesting stuff. Like, I know I keep saying that, but I really oh here and then there's the other thing too. You also see Greek Thessaly sometimes. So I think Thessaly is where they say is where they think Mount Olympus is. I think so. And then is it? Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then it makes me think of the Apolympos 14. Yeah. This was a really cool raid series. It was really fun. Ah, sort of that. Yes. This was yeah, and I'm not sure this would also be like the connection to like the fairy fountain Legend of Zelda, because like there were some Sequani who also mixed that area. Which reminds me of my friend Maffy. I know she says she's British, English, and Welsh, but I don't know. Maybe she has because when I would look at her, I would always think like Baltic for whatever reason. Maybe she also has history. Yeah, and this was interesting as well. Matthew said, I'm not sure if Britain's only Anglo-Saxon because I know in the U.S. they always talk about, you know, and I think my friend or my dad's partner, Julie says, I think the reason why they say that, why they say Anglo-Saxon white is because I think, before DNA testing was the thing, I think maybe at the time, maybe that's all some of them knew. Like they didn't know if they were related to anyone else. But yeah, and here you can even see it's not even just Anglo-Saxon. You can, nothing wrong, if you have, because I have some of it too. But there were of course other groups as well. It's like saying the Etruscans, you know, uh, made all the contributions to the aqueducts. No, and that's the same thing true with the Anglo-Saxons. Like, yes, there were contributions from them, but there were other groups too. You see like Viking Danish, Goots, Celts, Gales, and I think some of these are like also Bell Beaker populations as well. I appreciate the like whoever left it. No, it means a lot to me. Oh yeah, this was a cool sample too with the Ruran. Uh, like I don't know why when I look at him, he almost looks like he's like a blend between like a Samurai and like Odin, like from Norse myth. Like I think it's like a blend of like Odin, like it makes me like hold on, like it makes me think of Odin from I didn't even know they had Odin in Samurai Jack. Um, they have like Odin from like Final Fantasy 14 where he looks, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, where he almost looks like a mixture of a knight, a samurai, and like Norse all at once. Like it's yeah. When I look at him, like, and trust me, like I know it says here Uncle Horde, but no, it's different. And maybe that's why some of the samurai, though, when they were fighting the Mongols, maybe that's why maybe some of them felt like they were fighting themselves a little bit because I think, the ancestry, and I know some Japanese may like, no, 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 we're not, we're not, we're not carbon copies, and that's true. They're not, or we're not. But I think like there was like such like a close like Northeast Asian ancestry that even when they went in different directions, it's like they still like there was still like that connection, that shared Northeast Asian ancestry that they were working through. Or it's kind of like, you have like Celts and you have Italic people and Germanic people, and even though there are different groups of people, obviously, kind of one of those things like there's still like that kind of shared ancestry. Maybe that's why some people just say even just Asian versus like, because maybe like some people like might look at a Mongol and a samurai, and if they didn't look at the armor, maybe they would say, or I don't know, like maybe some people would say, oh, like they're more. I know, and I know some of the other Japanese are like, no, 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 that's not how it works. But that even happens too. Like I watch a YouTuber named Ken Kenobi, and he gets mad when people call him Chinese because he's like, I'm not Chinese, I'm not Chino, or Chino's like Chinese in Spanish, like I'm Japanese. But yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, and then I have a Celtic match from, but it's really been interesting learning about like my Japanese or Asian ancestry because like I uh I would have never like fully have known about it if I had not read about it. And the Ruran Avar Senpi Doron Senpi Senpai were really a lot like the samurai were. It's just like the story of them and the Gok Turks and then the samurai with the Mongols or under Kublai and Genghis. Like it's just really just like a similar story of like what they went through, how and how they eventually uh, found another way. They found uh, another path. I'll try to see if I can. Should be like some images. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why this reminds me a little bit. When I look at him, he reminds me a little bit of Bjorn from Norway. He's a Norwegian YouTuber. I don't know if it's because of like eventually there was like a bit of intermarriage, but sorry. Yeah, because like sometimes when I look at Bjorn, I feel like I can see. Yeah. Um. But yeah, no, there's like some images that really remind me a lot of the samurai. I have to see if I can find. Maybe these images won't do it justice, but yeah, like sometimes like when I look at like especially like how they rode on horseback, the armor and the bow and arrow, just makes me think a lot of like the samurai like here. Of course, the armor is a little bit different because I think over time they upgraded it or they put their own additions to it. But see how, yeah, the armor, yeah, the armor of the samurai is like almost like I'm not saying it's identical, but there's definitely I think they went in different directions, but and I almost think of like dragons, like some could say healing guardian dragons in their own way. Some could say other things, but like for example, there is like an Avar sample I have, and I'll just share it real quick before we go back to the other samples. Where here literally this match reminds me of Torunaga from Shogun. Like to me, it's almost like if not identical, very, very similar. Just like even just like the aura is like very similar. Um, yeah, I can definitely see it for sure. Yeah, it's some really interesting stuff though, like how people from Northeast Asia really, and I guess also connected to Japan, like how they traveled so many thousands of miles, like to Europe, Americas, because I think that's how the Eskimo came to Paleo Eskimo. They intermarried with natives already there. But yeah, it's just like really interesting stuff. Um, but yeah, no, I have other match. Yeah, it's just like really interesting stuff, like how all these groups kind of came together. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know about because see, like there were some like AI generated images I saw where they had images of like people who had settled in Maryland, like when people were coming from Europe to the Americas. It was like images of people that really looked more like Native American. So like that's why like sometimes I'm not always 100% sure about some of the images, like because sometimes like they change it. But yeah, like so, I feel like some of them feel accurate, and then others feel like I don't know. Maybe it's just me though, but um, yeah, but it's like pretty interesting stuff though. You can see Etruscan, Equine. They see how the groups kind of blended. Acadian. It's nice though that they even have images to begin with though, because like okay, so you can see. I think like the Celtic Odyssey. Uh, these were some of the Iron Age Celts that I did go into Britain and Ireland during the Iron Age. Help you yeah, like this ultimately I think has been work. Just really learning about all the different, yeah, and this Odios, Gallo Celtic, Spain. Sometimes I think people wonder, like who finished. I think people don't realize um, Spain and Portugal also had like a lot of Celtic tribes who were there as well, because of course, they had the influence from Rome and Greece, eventually North Africa, other groups as well. Um, you had the Muslims who came for a while, but and most of those people, I think, because sometimes people wonder if they were mainly Arabs or indigenous Africans. And of course, there's a lot of news currently about that. Yeah, it's really interesting to like learn about like all the all the different, yeah, this person, this is like another sample that I kind of like felt like that the Northeast Asian ancestors have our Buranj of and the, I think before the Yayoi out of had the highest Northeast Asian ancestry at like 46.5%, because I think some of them also like East Asian, they also had like a high, yeah, and I this one's closer to the Ruran, but you can tell that, and maybe that's why sometimes when people look at some Japanese, they think they're uh the Mongols or Mongolians, because even Ken, he'll say, just because I look a certain way, doesn't mean I'm Mongolian, or I'm, or no, the descendant of Chinggis Khan, or Genghis Khan, or whatever. That's what, yeah, yeah. 'Cause I think a lot of people think, if you look Northeast Asian, somehow are descendant of Mongols, Genghis, and but that's that's not the case, because that ancestry all predated that ancestry 800 years ago, or however long it was. But yeah, and yeah, so hockey from Soul Calibur 6. I just see, like, like, okay, this one. So when I look at Taki from Soul Calibur 6, and I look at it, I just feel like it's like, I feel like I'm looking at almost like, it's like just the fierceness, facial features. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why some Japanese, and I always thought to myself, like, why are some Japanese, or Japanese, now I think I like, and there was like a sample I had. Unfortunately, it's gone now, I think, for a reason. But there was a sample I had that actually had Japanese a plot here, like Japanese sure that was kind of, but yeah, it's just like some really interesting. Yeah, and see, that's why I also call myself Rainbow Japanese and Celtic healer, because I feel like that's like the best way to describe my ancestors. kind of like to describe or tell people like this is like part of my ancestry because like sometimes that they try to ask like who are you or what's your ancestry have like so many different. This reminds me a bit of my friend Dolly. This uh, Irish, French, Cajun. Of course, and I guess that's why I have to tell people sometimes too, because sometimes people, even though I call myself Rhinebeer Japanese and Celtic heel, I'm also like, my friend Matthew, Britain, she'll call me her favorite Scottish American. Really, I guess if you want to like know like what I am completely, I know I say Rhinebeer Japanese, Celtic healer, that's my ancestry. Like really, Rhinebeer Japanese plus Celtic healer American. Like I know it's a lot, it's a mouthful, but I feel like that's like the best way to say it. Oh yeah, this was an interesting match too because um, my dad had a sample from Montana from 10,000 years ago that had like a maternal haplogroup related to, and I've shown it to you guys, but it's like had a maternal haplogroup from like Ice Age Japan, like thousands of years ago. Could even be to like the Jomon period of Japan, but and also eventually connected to the well, but the Y-DNA haplogroup Q1b was that was an example of that paternal lineage, and you can see here the paternal lineage is also Q1b, but the guy just has blondish. I think that's what some people say is that like the ancestry like Q and R for Europeans, and I guess connected to natives and started in like Siberia, but it wasn't like Asian though. It wasn't like Asian North Asian N and O or O and N earlier, but on Avar or something. Yayoi. But this group, someone to America, Europe, and it'll be interesting to like see how it all kind of like works in like Evercold. Here, this like North Southwest German center, and I don't know if this is why like some Germans and like a connection to like Native Americans. Like I don't know if it's like that. And, like, of course, like stuff Hungarian, but yeah, just some like neat stuff. Yeah, this reminds me of I have a friend named Antino. I don't know, French, and yeah, just like a lot of neat. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end the. I know. Yeah, hopefully you guys. Oh yeah, and this reminds me of Ben went to middle school, high school. Yeah, reminds me. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had a fun time watching, and I'll be off for now. Take care.